The season is coming to a close. This is your pitching planner, Eric Mack. Are you going to miss video? Yes. So glad to have each and every one of you with us. I'm Lauren Shehadi alongside Mack. Well, the Tigers and the Twins in the last pennant race that really matters. Where does that leave Justin Verlander, Nick Blackburn?
Yeah, they made a few adjustments because this is the last race that matters. Nick Blackburn moved off a two-start week in Fantasy Week 25 to the final week of the season. That's important because he's pitched pretty well of late after some struggles in August and early September. And then you also have Justin Verlander, potentially as a two-start pitcher. But if the Tigers clinch before the final day of the season, they're going to set up their postseason rotation with Justin Verlander at the front of it. So he won't pitch on that last day. Do not guarantee yourself two starts with Verlander, but you have to start him regardless because he's a must-start ace. Look at those strikeouts. A breakthrough season for Justin Verlander.
Could be a battle between those two teams. We'll see how it works out. What about the battle to get your numbers where they were before your DL stint? Tim Hudson, Hiroki Kuroda are there.
Yeah, those two guys came up in September off of DL stints, and they have been outstanding, especially Hiroki Kuroda. You know, we said he would be a sleeper because the Dodgers are a team that's going to win a lot of games and score a lot of runs. But Hiroki Kuroda, 2-1 with a 2.16 ERA and 21 Ks and 6 walks. Those are amazing numbers for what is usually a middle-of-the-line starter. He's now an ace. You got to start him in his final two-start week. He will get both starts because he is not a one or two starter for the Dodgers in the postseason. And then you got Tim Hudson coming off Tommy John surgery. We said he could be a sleeper, and then look at those numbers. Those are solid numbers for Hudson. He could be a two-start pitcher, although there might be some hesitation starting him twice before the end of the season, especially if they're out of the race. Coming off of Tommy John surgery, they might shut him down for the last day.
We're going to talk about Hudson a little bit later in this segment, but Mack, I want to ask you a question that I asked you in the beginning of the season, which was your AL and NL Fantasy Cy Young Award winners.
Yeah, I picked in the AL, I picked Josh Beckett. Didn't really work out for me. He had a good season in the wins, but he's been inconsistent, had some slow starts there in July. And then in the NL, I picked Johan Santana. Of course, he went down right down the stretch with that season-ending surgery. Those didn't really pan out for me. But in the American League, you got Zach Greinke have a huge surprise season. I did not think the Royals would be win enough games to allow him to win a Cy Young, but when you look at that 2.08 ERA and he's getting 2 starts, he might win a couple more games. CeCe Sabathia is still in the mix. He can make 2 more starts, maybe even win 20 games. That might get him the Cy Young. You got Felix Hernandez, another guy on a team that's probably not a top contender, but he's been outstanding. He's got the ERA and the wins and the strikeouts. And you got Mariano Rivera. If there's too much to choose between those 3 starters, maybe you go with Rivera as like a career award. This has been a fine comeback season for him, another 40-save season. Over the NL, I did not pick any of these guys. I could have picked Lincecum. He's been stellar, but not quite as good as Carpenter or Wainwright, the 2 St. Louis Cardinals. One thing I did nail with Wainwright, I said he was going to be a 27-year-old breakout. And then with Carpenter, I said he would be a comeback player of the year, but they might even be the Cy Young Award winner. Adam Wainwright's going to make 2 more starts before the season's over. He might win 20 games.
Pretty good numbers there. I was going to ask you, what about your best rookie starters?
Yeah, the rookie starters I didn't really nail either, but Tommy Hanson, he has been outstanding. He's going to be with J.A. Happ in a race in the final week. I think they could shut down Hanson, though. I think he might only make 1 more start. You still got to run him out there in most fantasy leagues. Rick Porcello, he's won 14 games already with a starter 2 left with the Tigers. Jeff Neiman has had a good season, not a spectacular one, though. Andrew Bailey, another AL Rookie of the Year candidate, has been stellar as the closer, but he doesn't really have a high saves total, so it's going to be difficult for him to win. I think Hanson and Porcello are probably going to be your Rookie of the Year.
You know what? For the last time, your must-start, 2-start pitchers, some people call him money. Some people call him underrated. I'm talking about Scott Feldman.
Yeah, Scott Feldman. He is amazing this season. You know, he's won 17 games to date, and the Rangers are a team that can get him a lot of run support. But look at his splits. Next week, he's on the road for 2 road starts. And on the road this season, he is 12-1 with a 2.58 ERA. And I know that start against the Angels looks tough, but he's been 3-0 with a 3.28 ERA against the Angels, and then, of course, that final day start against at Seattle. That's not going to be a tough matchup for him. Feldman is a must-start. He could be one of the best pitchers in the final week of the season. Jason Marquis is on the other side of the ledger. He faces 2 tough offenses in the Brewers and the Dodgers, and then his numbers in September have been brutal. He's 1-3 with a 6.28 ERA. I know Marquis has had a fine season for you. He's been a sleeper, but in the final week in crunch time, you probably should not trust him.
Lost 4 of his last 5 decisions. All right, what about your sleepers? We're getting to the guy we were talking about earlier, and that's Tim Hudson. Not dominant, but reliable.
Yeah, he's been reliable, and he can make 2 starts, and then you look at his matchups. They're not real tough. He's got the Florida Marlins, and then he's also got the Washington Nationals. You know, I think those 2 matchups are outstanding for him. They might not start him on that final day, but I think that first matchup is decent enough where you can trust Tim Hudson. And then you got Homer Bailey. He has been outstanding. I do not know why he's only owned in 43% of the leagues. He's only starting in 1/4 of the leagues on CBSSports.com. He is 2-1 with a 2.67 ERA in September. He should be starting in way more leagues, and I think you can trust him in crunch time. He's an outstanding play in the final week.
A nice month or 2 for Bailey. Eric, say a few words. Say goodbye.
Well, I'll be around. We'll do some videos.
That's right.
We'll
Keep
recap
watching.
the season, perhaps.
Sounds great. Thank you for watching Fantasy Baseball, and we'll see you soon.